Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Committee of Vice-Chancellors of Nigerian Universities Secretariat and the University of Ibadan, it's my pleasure to welcome you to this soapbox event in the Southwest Zone. Well, the topic is 60 years and 60 minutes, exploring trends in the Nigerian university system. It's part of the activities to celebrate the CVCNU at 60. May I request that we all rise for the anthems, please. Please be seated. Thank you very much. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure once again to welcome us to this ceremony, the celebration of the Committee of Vice-Chancellors of Nigerian Universities at 60. I'd just like to make a few recognitions because anybody that is here today is an important man in his own right, the head of one university or the other. But be that as it may, I'd just like to recognize the presence of the Vice-Chancellor of the host university, the University of Ibadan, Professor K.O. Adebowale, FAS MNI. We have also here with us the Deputy Vice-Chancellor Administration, Professor E.O. Ayola. Deputy Vice-Chancellor Academic and Chairman of the LOC, Professor Adirunke Bayeroju. Deputy Vice-Chancellor Research, Innovation and Strategic Partnerships, Professor Oluyemisi Bangboshe, FAS. SAN. I beg your pardon, ma. We also have with us the bossa of the university, Mr. A. Bukola, and also the university librarian, Dr. Elin Komalafe Okpadeji. Thank you very much. The registrar of the university is ably represented by the Deputy Registrar, Human Resources and Development, Non-Teaching Staff, Mr. Ibukun Akimbola. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, from the CVN-CU Secretariat, we have the chairman, Professor Samuel Gowon Edaimekumo, represented by Professor Kabiru Adeyemi Adeyemo. Welcome, sir. The Secretary General of the CVCNU, Professor Yakubu Aboki Ochefu. And also from the CVCNU Secretariat LOC, we have Saratu Ashiru Gadalanchi, Karen Dao, and Olise Ogbogbo. Thank you for being here with us. And I'd love to recognize the discussants at today's ceremony. And it's my pleasure to introduce Emeritus Professor O.A. Bamiro, FES, former Vice-Chancellor, University of Ibadan. Professor K.O. Adebowale, Vice-Chancellor, University of Ibadan. Professor E.O. Ogunkola, Member of Council and Chairman, IGR Committee, UI. Mr. V.A. Fadeibe, the Chief Security Officer for the university. Professor S.B. Olaleye, Editor-in-Chief, African Journal of Biomedical Research and Dean, Faculty of Basic Medical Sciences, UI. Professor L.C. Adewoye, President, University of Ibadan Alumni Association Worldwide. The registrar is being represented by Mr. Ibukun Akimbola. And then we have the President, Student Union, University of Ibadan, Mr. Adeyinka Adiwole. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may I now invite the Vice-Chancellor to give his welcome address, Professor Adebowale.
The Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Administration, Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Academic, Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Research, Innovation and Strategic Partnerships, the Bossa, the Registrar, who is ably represented, the Bossa, the University Librarian, the Chairman, Committee of Vice-Chancellors of Nigerian Universities, who is ably represented by Professor Adeyemo, the Secretary General, Committee of Vice-Chancellors of Nigerian Universities, Dr. Yakubu Ochefu, Emeritus Professor Olufemi Bamiro, former Vice-Chancellor, University of Ibadan, Professor E.A. Ogunkola, who is a member of Governing Council, Professor S.B. Olaleye, Dean, Faculty of Basic Medical Sciences, Professor L.C. Adewoye, President, University of Ibadan Alumni Association Worldwide, the Chief Security Officer, Mr. Fadeibe, the President of the Student Union, Adeyinka Adewole, deans that are present here, heads of departments, directors of institutes, gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I am delighted to welcome you to the Southwest Zone Soapbox event to mark the 60th anniversary of the establishment of the Committee of Vice-Chancellors of Nigerian Universities. The University of Ibadan is pleased to host this event because of the historic role we have played in the Committee of Vice-Chancellors and in the Nigerian university education generally. Today, we are marking a decision that was taken in 1962 by 5 Vice-Chancellors: Professor Kenneth Dike, University of Ibadan; Professor Eni Njoku of the University of Lagos; Dr. George Marion Johnson of the University of Nigeria, Nsukka; Professor Norman Alexandra of the Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria; and Professor G.A. Ajose of the then University of Ife, now Obafemi Awolowo Universities. These were the vice-chancellors of all the universities that existed in Nigeria at that time. These 5 wise men came together as a semi-formal group for peer learning. Specifically, they understood the importance of sharing best practices with one another. Of the 5 existing universities in Nigeria at that time, 4 were just 2 years old or less. University of Ibadan was 12 years old at that time. It was important, therefore, for these infant universities to be in constant touch with their older sister, who had weathered the storm for 14 years. Secondly, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, they understood that the cookbook for university management, if any existed then, was foreign. As at 1962, there were many first-class universities all over the world, some of which had existed for hundreds of years. These 5 wise men could have lifted up their eyes towards these established universities to find solutions to whatever problems the Nigerian universities had. Being thinkers, however, they knew the context and resources and problems were incompatible with what is obtained both in Europe and in America. It was therefore important to nurture homegrown engagements and solutions to the problems of the universities. Thirdly, they needed the synergy of the CVC as a lobby group, even if it is a mild one. Each vice-chancellor could always go to the Ministry of Education in Lagos, which was the seat of government at that time. However, they knew situations will arise that will require group lobbying and mild pressure. They must have thought, together we can achieve more. 60 years after, the justifications for the establishment of the CVC are right here with us. The number of universities has changed from 5 in 1962 to about 200 in 2022. However, the need for working together for peer learning has not changed. The need to contextualize global problems and solutions has not changed. And the need to jointly lobby and make case for the system has not changed. It appears that these needs will never change. Rather, they will become more pressing and much more acute. Still on the need to contextualize problems and solutions, CVC has branched into 3. One for the vice-chancellors of federal universities, one for the Vice-Chancellors of state universities, and the third for the Vice-Chancellors and registrars of private universities. And all this operate under one umbrella body known as CVC-NU, Committee of Vice-Chancellors of Nigerian Universities. The CVC and its branches continue to offer unique opportunities for us to deal with our issues and move the university system forward. This is why I must express my delight at the topics chosen for this soapbox event. The questions of funding, transformational leadership, security, integrity in research, which is the antidote for plagiarism, and learning management systems, especially in the COVID era, are urgent and important topics indeed. The role of data and the contributions of the alumni are no less important. This is an event for the Southwest Zone of the Committee of Vice-Chancellors of Nigerian Universities. Hopefully, similar events are taking place in other locations. And hopefully, we will have a forum that harvests all these lessons from the events marking the CVC at 60. Solutions are important because they bring determination of a problem. However, lessons learned on the journey to solutions are even more important, for they are the precious arsenals for tackling the problems of the future. Solutions terminate at a temporal or spatial spot. Lessons go with us into the future, sometimes even beyond us. Sadly, in our thirst for solutions, we often forget lessons of the journey. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as I round off this welcome address, I want to thank all the speakers for honoring our invitation and accepting to share with us their wealth of knowledge and experience. We have assembled an impressive array of eminently qualified speakers who have not just knowledge, but also the experience of the topics they are to deal with. I am particularly impressed by the intergenerational nature of the panel of speakers at this event. We have a former Vice-Chancellor who is also a renowned retired academic. We have those who are still in active service. We have a student representing the academics and administrators of the future. The balance is indeed commendable. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to Ibadan, the city of 21 towns and 1681 villages, and the intellectual capital of Nigeria. I welcome you to the University of Ibadan, the educational heritage of Nigeria. I welcome you. Welcome and welcome.
And I join my voice to that of the Vice-Chancellor to say you are all welcome to the University of Ibadan. May I now invite the Secretary General of the CVC-NU, Professor Yakub Aboki Ochefu, to make his remarks.
Vice-Chancellor, principal officers, distinguished panelists, distinguished members of the Committee of Vice-Chancellors, other Vice-Chancellors who are here present. I bring you warm greetings from the Secretariat of the Committee of Vice-Chancellors of Nigerian Universities. Any serious academic who comes to University of Ibadan will be filled with a sense of nostalgia, because you know that at one point in your academic career or the other, Ibadan would have touched you. I stand here with that sense of nostalgia when I recall in 2005, precisely in this hall, I stood on this podium to accept to become National President of the Historical Society of Nigeria. It was a very sublime moment, as I was the first of my generation of historians to accept that mantle of leadership from the likes of the great JFA Adeayi of blessed memory. I'm here again, standing here, filled with that sense of nostalgia when I recall, like the VC mentioned, that was in this very university, the great historian, Professor K.O.D.K., invited 4 of his colleagues and started what is now known as the Committee of Vice-Chancellors of Nigerian Universities. I assumed duty as Secretary General in November 4th, 2019. And as I was reading my handover notes, I asked them 2 questions. If they had the minutes of the first meeting of the CVC, and I was pleasantly surprised when it was fetched from the CVC archives. And as I read it, it became clear. I read the entire minutes for the first five sessions. And it was clear that some of the issues that we are having to deal with today, our intellectual ancestors had dealt with it right from day one. The second question I asked was, how many Nigerians have been vice-chancellors in Nigerian universities? They didn't have the figure. And I said it was important that we put that figure together. And we started combing our records and found out that 753 distinguished Nigerians have held the position of vice-chancellor, out of which 35 of them are women. This history as a professional historian was very important to me. But more important, it was to the university institution itself. And that was why we said it is important that we celebrate 60 years of leadership in the Nigerian university system. We couldn't have started from anywhere else other than the University of Ibadan, because this is where it all started. So I thank the Vice-Chancellor for being very magnanimous in allowing us to host this event here, and also to thank the chairperson and members of the LOC who did a fantastic job in putting the entire arrangement together. This is, like Vice Chancellor said, this is the first of the events. This is actually the inaugural event of the celebration. Today marks the first day of the celebration of our 60th anniversary. It will climax in October 15th, which is the actual date that epochal meeting held. And in addition to having the soapbox event at the University of Ibadan, we're also going to host it in the 6 other geopolitical zones. We're going to have other activities. We're having an international conference that will discuss 60 years of leadership in Nigerian university system. We're going to have a NUGA event. As you all know, NUGA is a brainchild of the Committee of Vice-Chancellors, the baby of the Committee of Vice-Chancellors. We're celebrating the NUGA Games in Lagos that will start today actually. And we're also going to have a special NUGA event for the celebration. We're also going to have an innovation challenge whereby staff and students who have distinguished themselves in the area of research and innovation will be able to compete across Nigeria and win prizes. And then lastly, we're going to have our grand gala night that will celebrate our heroes within the university system, our past vice-chancellors, living ancestors, and those who have made the university system enabled to work for us. The topics have been carefully chosen. And like I said, it reflects some of the challenges that vice-chancellors meet on a daily basis in the course of doing their work. As a former vice-chancellor myself, I understand where the shoe pinches. My boss who taught me the job of university administration will say that being a vice chancellor in a Nigerian public university is like operating in the emergency unit of a hospital. You finish with one case, and as you are trying to sit down, they wheel in another case. And I'm sure VCUI understands that very well. I don't want to ask Professor Bamiro because he's an oracle in that matter. So, so we've chosen these topics carefully, and I'm very, very happy that the caliber of panelists that have been chosen is wonderful. The national president of the University of Ibadan alumni, thank you. I'm your counterpart from the University of Calabar. The relationship between Calabar and Ibadan is very, very strong. From Ayandele to Okonuya, you all know that nexus. So I look forward to seeing you next week when you host us at the Conference of Alumni Association of Nigerian Universities. So, VC sir, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for being here, and I look forward to a splendid outing. Thank you and good morning.
Thank you very much, Professor Ochefu. I didn't want to sound boastful. I was going to say it, that if you didn't pass through Ibadan, Ibadan must have passed through you in one way or the other. So I was going to say it, but some people will say we are being boastful. Well, it's not, it's the reality. So thank you very much, Professor Ochefu, for bringing that to the fore. May I now invite Professor Kabiru Adeyemi Adeyemo, Chairman, Committee on Private Universities, to give the chairman's message. Thank you.
The Vice-Chancellor, University of Ibadan, Professor Adebowale, our distinguished discussants, my fellow colleagues, my fellow Vice-Chancellors, distinguished scholars, and participants. I stand on the existing protocol that has already been established by the Vice-Chancellor. I'm here bringing goodwill messages from the chairman of the Committee of Vice-Chancellors of Nigeria, that's Professor Samuel, who is supposed to be here, but he has a problem with his flights. So that is why I'm representing him. And as the chairman of Committee of Vice-Chancellors of Private Universities in Nigeria here, I send the goodwill messages from them, and also from the Lee City University, the first private university in Ibadan land, under the tutelage of the University of Ibadan. We are here, we salute the doggedness and the focused leadership of the Vice-Chancellor and his team for the sustenance of academic excellence for which the university is known for. And we appreciate the LOC for organizing this soapbox program. And I believe that relationship between University of Ibadan and CVCN will continue to be a symbiotic one. And on this note, we appreciate you. And I believe that at the end of this program, we shall all have something that is rewarding, to our Sahig. So once again, we appreciate the University of Ibadan. More grace to your elbow. Cheers and stay blessed.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the business of the day, which is the soapbox discussions. And it's my pleasure to invite the moderator, Dr. Demola Louis, to take over the podium. Thank you.
Mr. Vice-Chancellor, all Vice-Chancellors here, university principal officers here, the panelists, distinguished panelists, good morning. We're here for the 60th anniversary soapbox commemorating the foundation of the Committee of Vice-Chancellors of Nigerian Universities. And it's titled 60 Years and 60 Minutes. So we're going to, therefore, have our 8 speakers talk in 60 minutes. Might be a bit impossible, you'd ask me, but we'll try. So because we have people here who are packed with a lot of experience and knowledge about how the university is run. After their talks, we'll then have discussion by way of questions and comments. Would advise that everybody be brisk about this. In particular, would ask that the panelists keep to their time. So we would notify you. I would put up a piece of paper that says time up when time is up, and then you try to wrap up. I see Professor Bamiro laughing at me, but let's see how it goes. So without much ado, I'd like to invite the first speaker today, who's our very own Professor O.A. Bamiro, the 10th Vice Chancellor of University of Ibadan, first and the best. And he is a first-class engineer and an administrator extraordinaire. He's going to speak to the topic, transformation of university education. Professor O.A. Bamiro, please.
Well, thank you very much. Well, first and foremost, I think I must express my sincere appreciation to the organizers in this important, event. Well, I've been one that Professor Bayeruju kept telling me that it would be 10 minutes. I even said I was going to use PowerPoint. He said, no PowerPoint, that will take longer. So anyway, the question is, how does one talk about transformation of university education in Nigeria in 10 minutes? More so when you are, you are talking in an environment in which staff are on strike. So where do you start from? That is already, symptomatic that we have problems in the system. Because if there is any damage that has been done to Nigerian education system, unstable academic calendar has done one of the greatest damages. And if we are talking of transformation, it's an issue that must be addressed in order to, move the university system forward. So what I've done in here is to identify what are the factors, or what we can call factors, that we must be examining if we are talking of transforming the system. And I noted in here, there are 5 of them. And what are the 5 vectors that we have to? 1, the problem of access to higher education or university education, the quality of our education, the cost, or if you like, funding, then the relevance. What's the relevance? Not just cost, funding for what? And then, most importantly, in relation to this topic, governance, the governance of the system. So, well, I think the organizers have the email addresses of me. I promise you, I will give it to the organizer. You can have a copy of my presentation. More so when I have to, rush through. The first thing I ask in the paper is, what are universities for? And when you look at the universe in the university, it means that it's not a question we answer locally. It's a global answer that universities now are central to government agenda. Universities now are regarded as agents of development. So it's not just existing, So I said, well, if they're to be agents of development, then how can they be able to perform such important function? So I look first at the question of access. And why access has become important in the Nigerian universities, it's a pity I'm not showing the thing. You will have seen that from the 5 universities that formed the CVC in 1962, we are talking of 205 universities. And you will see in the paper I will give to you, the rate at which we started creating these universities. Right now, we are having 49 federal universities, 57 state universities, and 99 private universities. And if you are talking of transforming, the system. Now, what has informed, and then you see the geographical spread. But what has informed, you see the rapid creation, is the problem of access. We said the access was defined as a problem of the difference between demand and supply. As if more students or more people are knocking on the doors of university to gain admission, but less spaces. I dare say the recent analysis of data show that that is no longer true. There are now universities, not only private, even public, that are not able to fill their quota in admission. I mean, this must be, examined. Why is it that you have spaces and yet not being filled? I mean, you can easily, get into, that. So that means that what has been driving the rapid establishment of the demand supply is now supply, not me, the supply now, the demand not meeting the supply. So we have to look, at that. Then also, we must even talking of transformation. You have to look at how is the JAM admission criteria in the Nigerian university system. It is based on only 45% merit. And this has been in existence for quite some years. And what are the other factors? You have educational least developed states, geographical spread, to what extent that should that continue? When will the Nigerian university system be given the pride of praise to merit? That is part of the challenges of transformation. I leave that. Then the issue of quality. I equate that to the issue of quality to look at the products that we are producing. How well are they accepted out there? There's no denying the fact. A lot of studies have shown the disconnect between the university and the sectors out there in terms of skills. The skills of students being produced, of graduates, are not meeting the skills required out there. The de-skilling, that is something that we have to really, look at. And in looking at the quality also, we must look at the teachers, the lecturers themselves. I think NUC data show that we had a student enrollment of almost 2 million plus, but the number of, academic human capital, maybe, whether they say about 100,000 or thereabout, and a ratio of 20 or 20 something students to 1 or something like that. There's no denying the fact that we have to examine both in quality and quantity, the adequacy of staff to carry, even to be able to sustain those programs, that we're running in the system. NUC keeps saying that, yes, there's need for PhD, for staff to be in the university. The question now is, how well are we in along that path? This is part of this, because a university is as good as the quality of the staff. Is a very important parameter. Then funding. Thank God that somebody is going to talk more on funding. So all I have to say in respect of funding in here is to just say that the present funding system in which our federal universities are relying almost exclusively on government is not sustainable. It's not sustainable. There's nowhere in the world that government, I've taken part in some negotiation where some people say, oh, education is public good. Therefore, serious government must fund from when you are born to when you die. Where is that in the world? Can government fund us 100%? No. Education is not public good. It is only, it is both public good and private good. And therefore, funding of education must be multi-stakeholder. The beneficiaries also must contribute. It cannot be only just government. And it's because of this so-called public good stance that we are now having this series of strikes. And it's because of also this that we are having centralized unionism. For as long as we have centralized unionism, we continue to destabilize, the system. Let workers negotiate with their employers. In other words, let individual university members of staff negotiate with the governing council. There's nothing that says that the salary of staff in US should be the same as ABU, should be the same as No. There must be that differentiation in funding. Then most importantly also, in respect of funding that we have to look at is the government also even funding us using envelope. I became VC of this university in 2005. And that was when government started with envelope. And what did they mean by envelope? They said we shouldn't bother about budgeting. We go to Abuja, You will pray that government will give you enough to pay salary. And then maybe a little bit more. How do you run a university like that? How can you create, say that you are, how many minutes more? Eh? Time out? No. Hey, okay. What I will say let me go now to I've already mentioned governance. Okay, that governance is to me what we have to look at if we want to really transform the university system. Governance is very important, and I've given examples in here that in most countries, let's say South Africa, that is doing very well, how their governing council, you have more external members than internal members, and then university also participate, who will govern. It's very, very important that in the governance section that you have this, and then most importantly, that university also must put in place the mechanism. Thank God that somebody also is going to talk about that in the process of transformation. You must put on mechanism in which you are able to even manage the resources. It's one thing for resources to come into us. To enter the university is another thing for universities to be able to manage the resources. I believe that each university now must be moving towards what I call the management of the system, not administration. Management of the system means that you must know how much is coming in, and then you must know really, how to manage it and the resource, outflow. That is an area where I feel that we have a lot to do. But so in conclusion, I just say that, well, for as long as we look at we have to revisit the issue of governance of the system. Whatever we can do to tinker with the governance system to ensure that you put responsibility on the university to manage their affairs. I'm sure our VC is there, like other advisors, the day I heard that a VC cannot employ even a messenger without getting to Abuja. Now, what are you talking about? Where's the university? Where's the so-called autonomy and so on? So if you're talking about transformation, a lot still has to be done. And what has to be done is to put management responsibility back to the university themselves so that they can be responsible, for whatever they achieve. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Bamiro. You did extremely well by keeping to time. So the questions are different. He says, now we have to explain why there are spaces that are unfilled in the universities. So it's a problem of access from a viewpoint of not filling the spaces, a disconnect of education and the skills that are required in the workplace. And education is both a public and a private good, he says, and both parties therefore should pay for that education. Decentralization of unionism so that people can bargain properly, and the primacy of governance in terms of managing the institutions, and that should be based on the autonomy of the universities, and they should have the ability to do that by themselves. Thank you very much, Prof, for that wonderful talk. I'm sure that we have comments which we have kept and we're going to make once we're done. The next talk is going to be by none other than our highly cerebral Vice-Chancellor of the University of Ibadan, first and best. He has an intimidating CV. We call him the Vice-Chancellor, the VC with the CV. It's widely published and cited, and he's an industrial chemist with numerous patented innovations. He's going to talk about the new age of virtual learning, and the topic is learning management systems. You're welcome, sir.
You will notice that I quickly stood up so that let me run him out of order before he says other things that does not belong to me. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I usually lean on the existing protocols, so let me go ahead and lean on it. The topic for 10 minutes is the learning management systems. And I put it as learning management systems, LMS, and the 21st century education. In teaching and learning environment, and I'm combining the teaching and learning because I know it is possible to teach and not to learn. But when you learn, there is that possibility that you are combining the two. In that environment, whether it is on-site or whether it is online, there are certain digital tools that exist to make the process of both teaching and learning more effective and also more impactful. This may either be synchronous teaching and learning or asynchronous teaching. We know that when it happens at the same time, it is synchronous. And when it does not happen at the same time, it is asynchronous. So in terms of teaching and learning, for synchronous learning and teaching, the implication is that participants can receive usually immediate feedback after the teaching and learning. And if it's asynchronous, it means that participants can learn usually at their own pace. You know, many of these digital tools have been found to enable the three domains of learning, which we know very well: cognitive, affective, and then psychomotor. And these tools that we are talking about are usually used for designing, for facilitation, and for the assessment of learners. You will notice that in recent times, many of the tools that we are going to speak about have become very popular. And it is because of the lockdown that is occasioned by COVID pandemic, which makes, you know, teaching, physical teaching, you know, face-to-face, it makes it a little bit difficult because it becomes difficult to gather, you know, a lot of people together in one place, which is COVID-19, the new normal. So the need to interact, engage, and assess learners over long distances, just like I said, have become very acute, therefore necessitating the compulsory use of digital tools. One of the digital tools that have been found to have potentials to aggregate activities of teachers, or what you want to call facilitators, and learners is what is referred to as the learning management systems, LMS. And as the name implies, the system helps to administer teaching and learning activities, whether it is on blended format or whether it is on virtual mode. Blended is a combination of the physical face-to-face and then the virtual mode. And the LMS is a system that contains other subsystems that are interrelated or interact to plan learning, to plan teaching, to deliver learning, to assess, and also to give, at the end of the day, a report. The LMS is actually a software that aids the delivery of educational courses and other learning-based programs. It is usually online, but there are some versions that have been developed very recently that can work offline. It can use offline platform, you know, that have the capacity to combine many other types of media, which may include video. It may be a combination of video or audio, which essentially is for learning. And just like I said, it can either be synchronous or via asynchronous mode. And an LMS has a user interface where the administrators, where the learners, and also particularly where the students, where they can engage and where they can interact. And apart from that, it also has a server, which is meant to conduct, you know, the operations of the LMS. On that platform, some of the functions, let me quickly state some of the functions that a typical LMS will enable you to register students for courses, to give students access to learning materials, to engage them in either synchronous as well as asynchronous discussions, particularly with the teacher, and in addition to other students, participates in assessments and also grading of the students. So the implication is that at the end of the course, the teacher can generate a report of all the activities that have been carried out, all along in the course, and also to be able to bring out the grades. It is also possible that an LMS can first exist within, or there can be the possibility that it can be linked with the RMS, which is the resource management system. The one that is linked or that has handshake with the resource management system is the one that appeared to be more popular in most institutions of learning. The teacher will upload the grades of the students from the LMS directly, to the resource management system. And within the resource management system, one will be able to, there will be the computations, and then a report can be generated in the format that you are interested in. And you know that these formats differ. The formats that is for faculties, the formats that perhaps in some places for departments, and also the format for Senate differs. So it will have the ability to generate these reports in those various formats. So for all that I've said, in essence, it is a digital tool that is meant for e-learning. Well, as much as possible, the LMS is very flexible, and it can be used, on any digital device. So therefore, the learners can indeed learn anywhere and also according to their pace. There are many types of LMS, and there are also many examples. Depending on the parameters under consideration, some of the different types may include the free and open source, or what I want to call the time is out. The time is out. Or what I can say, the one that is paid for. You can have the cloud-based. You can have the one that is built in authoring tools. And what do I say again? The common examples can be the module type. It is the module type that appeared to be the most common in higher institutions because it appeared to be the most flexible out of all. It can be customized to individual institutions because it's an open source, and it also supports third-party add-ons and plugins. You can have Canvas, you can have Schoology, you can have Edmodo. Let me just, there are many affordances. Well, in conclusion, there can be a lot of drawbacks to it, just as we have said, since we said it is majorly that is online. The implication is that internet services must be available, and it also involves training. It also involves, and that's why in most cases you have trained the trainers. You may not be able to, for all the people that operate it, it is impossible to put them in one space, in one four corners, and try to train them. So the teachers and so on, they are to be trained. The students are also to be trained for them to understand, the e-learning. And there are a lot of research, and I'm already concluding. There are many research that is on, but over time, to be able to improve the LMS. Let me just tell you just one or two, and I will fold my paper and leave. Just one or two. There's one of the research by Mohammadi Ital, 2021. And what he brought up there is, he says, lack of policy is the most important area of challenge that has a high impact on the success of higher education LMS. This lack is also cause other challenges, such as skills, which is important, the quality of service, to be affected. And finally, that there is strong relationship. That one is by NASA, 2021 also, that there is a strong relationship between ICT knowledge and the LMS usage. And that's why you cannot operate an LMS without not having a very strong, ICT base. I want to thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice-Chancellor, sir. I had the question about which LMS. We use the UI LMS, Professor Bamiro. UI LMS. And the Vice-Chancellor just spoke about the components of the UI LMS, basically, which is still being developed, but which we used effectively in the first semester of last session, because all activities were done by virtual means. So he talked about all the advantages of that, how it's compulsory that we all go digital right now, and universities should have the infrastructure in place for that. What the LMS can do in terms of registering students, teaching, assessing students, and grading and all of that, and give the advantage as being the permanence of all the records, and you can just draw them up anytime that you want, so you don't lose those records. And the challenges he identified as provision of internet facilities and data, as well as training of staff. And he pointed out some ongoing research in that direction, which shows that there's a lot more to do along those lines. Thank you very much, Mr. Vice-Chancellor, for that talk. Now it's a turn. There's been a lot of allusions to money here, and it's important that we discuss the issue of funding of universities. We have to do that none other than an economist par excellence. He straddles the town and the gown. He's one of the few academics that are millionaires, multimillionaires, or perhaps billionaire. I don't know. May I respectfully call here member of council of University of Ibadan, Professor Ogunkola, to engage the topic funding and internally generated revenue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me learn from the previous speakers. I will thank you at the end of this presentation. I need 10 minutes fully. And thank God that I'm very short. I won't be able to see any paper that is saying time off. On a serious note, let me thank Professor Bamiro for presenting part of my paper. And it is important that we get this right. The Vice-Chancellor is talking about LMS, internet, and all whatnot. Where is he going to get the money? That's a big question. The Vice-Chancellors their legs and hands are tied, and they want them to run 100-meter race. They want universities to compete with London School of Economics, where before you are employed, they've already set aside your salary. Or can you imagine a Vice-Chancellor of London School of Economics that need to talk to the Chancellor of Exchequer or Governor of Bank before he can access money? It's not possible. This is where we are. But how did we get here? Once upon a time, we have university system, Nigerian university system, where they were able to meet all their needs. You may say that the number of universities are very small, but even at that, they were able to meet and even send people on international conferences. People go on sabbatical internationally and they claim passages. I hope I'm communicating. Those were the days. What happened? In 1975, there was a change. I'll say 75, 79. What was the change? The abolition of tuition fees, pegging of boarding and lodging charges. And I think since that time, we've been coping. Nothing more than that. There are different ways or methods that government have employed, and there is no solution. The equilibrium has been disturbed, and we are yet to restore that equilibrium. And this you can see in terms of open and close of the university system. Right now, I'm not supposed to be here because I'm for the committee of the Vice-Chancellor to also play their role in lobbying the government to realize that we cannot continue this way. It's not feasible, it's not possible. Yes, government has been trying, picking the salary, which I know by now, by the time we finish this strike, is not likely to double, it's likely to triple. Whether government will still be able to pick the salary is another question entirely. Or you have a system where all that you have from government for running the university, forget about the salary, for paying electricity, for providing water, is just 2 million naira. I learned that even some university has 100,000 naira. To do what? Is it to pay for electricity bill? Such amount of money is not sufficient to even pick 1 month electricity bill. TET fund, we thank God for TET fund. We thank God for ETF. Maybe without these funding units, we won't be here today. Thank God also for us. But these are fire brigade approach. We need a structural way of funding education. It is when you have problem that you call fire brigade. Let us have a systematic way of funding education. Budget appropriation, again, thank God for Emeritus Professor Bamiro. Those days, you will prepare your budget. In fact, the budget is usually from bottom up. Various units in the university, and then you collate. You will go to NUC, you defend your budget, and then NUC will have to collate and defend at the National Assembly. Yes, you will be lucky to have 100%, but you may not. But you can actually calculate the funding gap. Assuming that you're able to calculate the funding gap, what of the internally generated revenue? You can raise that internally generated revenue. But before you clap for me, let me say there are constraints on internally generated revenue in Nigerian university system. The first one is that you have caps on what you can charge. There is nothing called tuition fee, no matter how small. You cannot charge so amount on housing accommodation. For example, even if the cost of providing accommodation to students is 80,000 naira per bed space, you cannot go up to that. When you charge 30,000 naira, when you provide ID card and they paid for it, the second problem is that 25% of whatever you generated must be remitted to Consolidated Revenue Fund. Chairman of CVC, Secretary of CVC, I think this should be fought. The case of University of Abuja is very fresh. The Auditor General is asking the Vice-Chancellor of University of Abuja, if you see the title in the newspaper, you will be surprised. They call it misappropriation. That he is supposed to remit 603 million naira out of 2.4 billion generated by the university, generated in quotes. If the student paid for ID card and you use the money to produce ID card, 25% of that money should be remitted to somebody. We are here to get there. There are so many other examples. So if you are not giving the university 100% of what will solve their problem, and you are also asking them not to charge appropriate fee on basic services, that's why I say the hands and legs of the vice-chancellors are tied, and we want them to compete globally. What is the way forward? There are many questions that we need to ask ourselves. Should civil service rule applies to Nigerian university system? Let us look at it closely. Why should a vice-chancellor go to the office of whoever to apply that I want to employ people in UI? No, if it is one office, I won't mind. But Mr. Vice-Chancellor, you will have to go to almost 6 or 7 units. A related question, what is the appropriate definition of IGR in Nigeria university system? We need to trash this out. Because if the appropriate price is 80,000 and I'm charging 30,000 and you still want me to remit 25% of that 30,000, it's not feasible. Should grant and third-party money be put in treasury single account? We need to ask ourselves. And I said this is because the university is now regarded as a unit under the civil service protocol. On grant, for example, with due respect, my Vice-Chancellor, my grants are now located in Kenya and Addis Ababa. As principal officer, they will ask me, what do we do? Because with grant, for you to even be sure that your money has the paid into the university account, it will take you several efforts. The bursar is here. And people, some universities actually use grants to actually develop. Should we continue to tie the hands and legs of the Vice-Chancellor and ask them to compete with global universities? One suggestion is for each university to do a thorough cost analysis. I'm rounding up. That's my own suggestion. Do thorough cost analysis of your services by discipline. Let us know how much it costs to produce an economist. a geologist, a medical doctor, name it. Let the government indicate how many graduates by type that it can afford and give the Nigerian university system the money. Let also allow the governing council and the university management to deliver on their mandate. It is simple. We should wake up from our sleep that education or Nigeria university system or university is a public good. I will argue as an economist, government need to focus on basic education. That's where the bulk of the public good in education is. For people to be literate, for people to not to become nuisance to the society. But the element of private goods in Nigeria university system, I think the stakeholders should also come together and advise on how they want to bridge that gap. Otherwise, we continue the way we used to. Finally, if it is a public good, then there will be no private university as an economist. Number two, let us be frank to ourselves. Some of us pay up to 300,000 in primary and secondary school, and when you get to the university, you pay less than 100,000. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Ogunkola. Thank you very much for pointing out that we began to have financial issues with the abolition of tuition fees in the universities, public universities, and wondered if the CVCN, and that's very important, could lobby government to invest more in education. He also said that the envelope policy is not helping matters, and that thanks to TED Fund and ETF and to ASU in particular, we are grateful that the university is where it is, that the fire brigade approach should be abolished, and that there are constraints even to IGR in terms of tuition, a peg on fees and charges. And of course, the 25% remittal to consolidation funds and then third-party funds going into government coffers and things like that, and how many researchers, therefore, would rather have their funds in places where they can be managed better in terms of the grants that they receive. And that since education is a public and private good, those who benefit from it privately should also come to a roundtable to discuss about making contributions in that direction. Thank you very much, sir, for that. The next talk will be on campus security, and it'll be given by none other than a seasoned security expert, the Chief Security Officer of the University of Ibadan. He is an awardee of the Institute for Industrial Security and Safety of Nigeria. They named him the Outstanding Achiever of Security and Safety. Thank God, we know that UI is in safe hands. Please welcome Mr. V.O. Fadeyibi.
Thank you, the moderator. Like those who spoke before me, yeah, I also want to stand on the existing protocol or leaning on it according to my Vice-Chancellor. Two things are currently being discussed in the world today. The first is economy, and the second is security. If you allow me to prioritize, I'll say security should come before economy. Because without security, the economy will not thrive. That is the truth. All we do in campus security here is to ensure that lives and property within the campus are put in a safe position, safe condition. In doing these, 4 things are important. Students must go to their lectures. They must study without fear. Staff, both academic and non-academic, they must be able to go to work without threat. Where the campus is residential, like the University of Ibadan here, residents must be able to sleep with their 2 eyes closed. Number 4, visitors to the university, or those who have one business or the other to transact here, should be able to do so without fear of being harassed by unfriendly forces. How do we go about this? We start from our gate, where we put on very strong access control system. Each university will devise its own in this regard. In Ibadan, we have the tally system. For example, where you obtain tally if you are driving in, and when you are going out, you submit the same tally. If you are a pedestrian, we go into what we call risk assessment and profiling. We look at you. What is this one coming to do in the university? We look at the dressing. We look at the comportment. From there, we form our opinion about him. So basically, access control simply means excluding those who are not supposed to be in the university. You don't allow them in. And when they are coming out, when people are coming out, you also have a way of looking at them. What thing you carry, as we say in Nigeria, we ask them the same question. Internally, we divide the campus into what we call commands, area commands or units, where senior officers are appointed. These senior officers report to the chief security officer, who in turn reports to the Vice-Chancellor via the chairman, Council Committee on Security. And it's been working well. We go into conflict resolution, say university, where you have people, there'll be conflict between individual and the system. There'll be conflict among individual. We also have a way of resolving this when it is individual and the system, except where it is criminal. Matters are settled internally. Universities don't touch criminal matters by law. Criminal matters will go to the Nigerian police. So if there is a case of theft, and when we are reporting it, we don't say he has stolen. No. The moment you say he has stolen, you're already criminalizing the matter. But you say he has converted to himself something that belongs to the other person. The student disciplinary committee has a way of looking at that. In carrying out some of these assignments, the emeritus professor spoke extensively about funding in Nigerian university. Security has been seriously affected in the area of equipment, radio communication, CCTV. Security in modern days has passed the stage of carrying stick about. No, it has gone beyond that. You need technology. In fact, where you deploy technology, you may not need so much manpower. That is the truth. From my office, I remember very well the student protest of about 4 years ago. The president of the student union is here. When none of us could get to the gate, to the main gate of the university, during Moat riot, when many of us could not get to the main gate, the president, vice chancellor, and myself were in my office watching everything going on at the main gate from the 4 corners of my office. That is technology for us. We will need that if we can afford them, scanners, and even paying allowances of these security men in some schools. It has become a problem. As managers of these universities, we need to look at this area. The manpower problem is chronic. In most of our universities, the deployment of manpower is grossly inadequate. Grossly inadequate. I am aware that since the introduction of IPPS into the system, it has become very difficult for the Vice-Chancellor to even employ a gardener. In UI, we were going to recruit 100. We had finalized the first stage, physical exercise, running and jumping. And we were going to ask them to come and do written exams when IPPIS came. And that put a stop to the whole thing. Ever since then, it has been one problem or the other. We need to recruit them. We need to train them. All this require money, training and retraining. And any security man who wants to be relevant these days must subject himself to that. Crime on campus, crimes are also changing. The society is dynamic. The same with crime on campus. They no longer carry televisions and radios. No. When they come this time, tear the net, carry telephones, carry laptops, carry jewelries. That's what they carry now. Not something that is heavy and of course they get ready market for some of these things. When you get to Sabo Market in Ibadan, for example, a laptop is sold for about 10,000 naira. That's what it is. I've had the unfortunate privilege of tracing a laptop there. In fact, 2 laptops. And when we got there, we got to the allergy that bought those things. He said, well, it's true, he brought 2 laptops and 1 BlackBerry here. But if you can return the 16,000 naira I paid to him, and if you are lucky, the man I gave those things to has not sold them, we can do a change tomorrow. 16,000 naira for 2 laptops and BlackBerry. So what I'm saying is they have ready markets for some of these things. Ready markets. It doesn't matter how much they pay them. We should understand that things are changing and they are changing quickly. Today, we have cases of assault, courtesan, examination malpractice, rape, forgery, stealing, robbery, housebreaking, and burglary. And the worst now is drugs. Abuse and dealing in drugs. And then you have cybercrime, Yahoo, the one we call Yahoo, gaining prominence on our campuses. So as security practitioners, as managers of these schools, we really need to look inward. What can we do to improve security situation in these schools? We have some problem with the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, saying that campus security ought to be registered with them. I am sure some vice-chancellors have been able to put that at rest. At least I'm aware of a court case in the South, where it was decided that the civil defense has no jurisdiction in Nigerian universities. We need to provide adequate amenities for our students. Bed space, water, light. When we don't do this, groups will emerge. Groups will emerge. And you will get to a situation where one group will want to lord itself over the other. And that is the beginning of courtesy. Except we do all this, we may not be able to get to promised land. Vetting. Vetting of security staff. When you employ them, you also need to look at their lifestyle. Jesus. You need to look at their lifestyle. You vet security staff, you also vet the students. when they are coming in, those that are drug-free would remain. Those that are not drug-free will be asked to go for rehabilitation. How do we handle disciplinary cases in our universities? How do we handle it? Who are the members? Are they men of integrity? How long do we even keep these cases before we treat them? These are very, very important areas that we need to look at. Student-security relationship has to improve. The student must see the security of the school as partners. It's their security. I tell my students here, we are your partners. It is only when they see this that they can render valuable information to them. Information is power. Security cannot work without information. And that is why we also encourage intelligence. It's the backbone of security. Without intelligence, security operation is flat. It's unfortunate that in some of our campuses, because of these manpower problems, those who were formerly in security unit seems to have been unveiled. They've been deployed to come and do real security work. We need to look at that area. Finally, sir, members of the community need to know that security is everybody's business. We need to create the awareness within the campus. It is not only those who are employed, it's not only those who carry stick about. You should be the security man in your own house. When you see something, they say we should do what? We should say something. Good morning.
Well said, sir. Thank you very much. He prioritized security over economy because without security, economy cannot grow. And then says that within the university setting, we must use the right nomenclature. I mean, so we do not criminalize offenses committed. That we should, for example, say things like gross misconduct and stuff like that instead of naming the offense, because it then becomes criminal. That would jeopardize the security of the student development on campus because it's supposed to be corrective. Digital security is important now. We should not call them Olokwa any longer because it's not about carrying sticks about any longer. Remuneration should improve for staff of security and should be paid promptly so that does maintain security and so on and so forth. He said that cybercrime and drugs are the most crucial security challenges today on university campuses, and provision should be made with adequate facilities for students so that they don't get into crime, unnecessarily. Screening for drugs should be done, and we should conduct our disciplinary cases with dispatch, and we should have people of integrity on these committees as well. He concluded by telling us that security units need to improve on intelligence, and they can only do that if they have the cooperation of the students and the community at large, if the community sees security units as partners. Thank you very much, sir, for that talk. It's now the 5th talk in 8 talks, and if you have not done a bit of exercise by standing up or something, please do so at your own convenience so as to keep the blood going and maintain good health. Now we're going to call on someone to talk about plagiarism, and none other than someone who's heavily published, over 120 publications, cited over 1,500 times, and so on. Our Dean of the Basic Medical Sciences. He's also the editor of the Journal of Biological Medical Research, Professor Samuel B. Olaleye. Yes, sir.
I know my time starts now. I want to join my Vice-Chancellor to stand on or to lean on existing protocols. When I got this call, I was asking myself the question, how will I talk about plagiarism to a group of people who already know about plagiarism? but I took solace in the fact that we are all policymakers and we should focus on issues that relate to policies. Nevertheless, we need to understand some things about plagiarism. I checked, and I would like to present what I saw at the website of Oxford University. Permit me to use that because I searched most Nigerian university websites and I did not see much on policies on plagiarism. I'm still going to come to this later at the end of the presentation. It defines plagiarism as presenting someone else's work or ideas as your own, with or without their consent, by incorporating it into your work without full acknowledgement. And there's a picture, the next slide, there's a picture that I saw on pngwing.com. And it's a picture, yes, no, the one before this, picture of somebody carrying a load. It actually depicts a thief carrying something that does not belong to him. And there they put ideas, designs, movies, culture, philosophy, everything. The person was stealing it and was running away with it. And that is to depict the exact understanding of what plagiarism is. Plagiarism actually comes from the Latin word plagiarius, which means kidnapping, kidnapper, or to kidnap. So you can understand what that word plagiarism is to us in academics: stealing somebody's work, copying somebody's work and putting it without acknowledging the person. So when we're talking about plagiarism, we're not just talking about copying somebody in writing. The idea of somebody being stolen. And it is something that is becoming more and more rampant in the Nigerian system. Plagiarism may be intentional, it may be unintentional. Most of the time, corporates actually feign ignorance. Sorry, I did not know about this, but there is no hiding place again in the world today. We need to know that when we use somebody else's work or ideas without acknowledging the person, we are plagiarizing. There are several examples of the way we do plagiarism in this part of the world. It may be just a section of a paper. You just find out that a person lifted a whole section of a paper and presented it for publication. If care is not taken, that work will be published and the people will assume that you are the owner of that work. We have come across situations where an entire paper belonging to somebody in another institution have been copied. I will give you that an example later. We have also seen situations where the lab report, somebody got lab reports of somebody in a university, brought it out and used the same lab report in verbatim to write his own paper and submitted it for publication. So why is plagiarism a big deal, a big issue? We need to understand that the issue of academic integrity is at stake here. Honesty is something that is required of an academic. Unfortunately, many people were trained to steal the work of others, and that is something that should stop. The issue of fair play is also there. The university system is a place where we believe in fair play. So if you steal someone else's work, the issue of fair play, when it comes to promotion and some other things, is already being jeopardized. Hard work is going to be put at the lowest level. The pursuit of truth and knowledge will be compromised if we continue to allow issue of plagiarism to rock our institution. Whether we like it or not, plagiarism is theft. You are stealing the intellectual property, and it is a breach. It is a big issue because it confers undue advantage to somebody. Imagine somebody stole another person's work, and that person continues to publish and submits papers for publication and is at an advantage on the basis of what it is going to be termed as quality and quantity, and that person continues to get promoted at the expense of somebody who is seriously working in the lab and his work is being stolen, at the end of the day, they will continue to praise that one and he will have that undue advantage. Of course, it devalues our institution. There was a time when African journals from the African continent, when they are submitted for PubMed inclusion, it was very difficult. It is still difficult today. Very difficult to get African journals into PubMed. The reason is they suspect us every time. They believe that whatever we do is not of good quality. But now we thank God that certain things are changing. Let me give some practical example, two of them. Sometimes in 2019, the African Journal of Biomedical Research published an article written by two academic staff from a state university. I will not mention the name of the university. And it was sent to peer review. The reviewers saw that it was a very good article and they recommended it for publication. It was published. A year later, we got a letter from the editor of another journal based in America, Journal Medicine and Science in Sports and Exercise. And he wrote to the editor-in-chief of the African Journal of Biomedical Research that they found that an article that was published is a verbatim replica of an article published in their journal in 1994. When we got that information, we investigated. Immediately, I went online. I saw that from the beginning, from the abstract, even the people, they did not spare the abstract. They copied the abstract word for word. I had to quickly contact them. I wrote them because I went through the retraction watch. I used the procedure for investigating such matters, and I wrote to them. It was in the process of investigating it that I found out that one of the authors actually went to a university in US for sabbatical, went to the library of that university, took that paper, which was in line with his own area, and stupidly just copied everything, thinking that he got back to Nigeria, these people will not do anything. He just, at that time, we were not having plagiarism software on the website of the journal. So when we got it, we quickly wrote. For 6 months, we were waiting. That was the time retraction words put as the timeline, that you wait for their response for 6 months. When we did not get anything, we had to write for retraction. We wrote to the university, we wrote to them, and we sent an apology to that journal. It was published in Retraction Watch, and up till today, nothing happened to those people. They are still lecturers in those universities. Now, in 2017, the publisher, Taylor and Francis, retracted about 10 publications by certain Oluwaseun Bamidele. He began publishing papers about terrorism as an undergraduate. And what was his excuse when he was found? He said he did not know about plagiarism until he started his master's program. These are two classical examples that we have. So why is plagiarism still thriving in Nigeria? There are lots of reasons which we're going to see. But I must say at this juncture that the introduction of Turnitin in the Nigerian University in 2013 via the initiative of the Committee of Vice-Chancellors at that time is a step that has improved academic integrity. I can say that in the University of Ibadan, it has really helped a lot in ensuring that articles or papers or theses are really original. there are lots of questions still begging for answers, which the Committee of Vice-Chancellors need to look at. One, do universities in Nigeria publish their plagiarism policies on their websites? The answer is most of them don't have these plagiarism policies published there. I had to check for some leading universities in Nigeria, and I found out that the only thing you are going to see are maybe PDF of a file that is attached in a particular link in some universities talking about plagiarism. But when you go to most of these universities, I have put there a snap of University of Nottingham. They have very robust policy on plagiarism. It is getting to a point where Nigerian universities will have to really take the bull by the horn. There are still questions begging for answers. One, are there cases where faculty members have been punished for established cases of plagiarism? Two, are there courses at undergraduate and postgraduate levels aimed at enlightening students on how to avoid plagiarism and other academic misconducts? I doubt. Are we extending the use of anti-plagiarism software or tools to undergraduate and MSc projects? We now use it for PhD thesis. But it is very important for us to know that when we train these people from the undergraduate days about plagiarism, we will have less of problems of plagiarism in future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Olale. I think the most the take home from the talk was largely that we should have a robust plagiarism policy, and that should be made public, and that everyone, undergraduates, postgraduates, and staff should be well educated about the issue of plagiarism in universities. He also said that we should deploy Turnitin and other software, anti-plagiarism software, so as to be able to take care of this, and then also met out appropriate punishment to those who perpetuate plagiarism. Thank you very much, sir. Talk number 6. We're going to have the first lady here to talk today, and she is Professor Elsie Adewoye, a profound professor of physiology and head of department. She is president of the UI Alumni Association. And in her time, we've seen that association develop in leaps and bounds. They've donated the hall of residence, the alumni hall. They've expanded the infrastructure of the alumni center. And only a few days ago, they raised over 250 million for another facility in the university live. So she's the best person to talk about the alumni experience. You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. I want to lean on the existing protocol. And I've really looked at the gender ratio on the high table. My VC said 1:4, but I'm sure it's not 1:4. Thank you very much. I'm supposed to talk on alumni experience. Different universities have different meanings for alumni. Alumni could be people who have graduated, graduates of a university. Another university could interpret alumni to be matriculants of their university. In the University of Ibadan, alumni experience, my experience with University of Ibadan, we consider matriculants as alumni, provided that matriculant did not leave the university as a result of rustication
or rustication or misconduct. Matriculants can leave their base or home institution, start there, and finish up in another institution. That doesn't stop the fact that he's a matriculant of that particular university, and that makes him still an alumnus of the university. Alumni are therefore a group of responsible, honest, loyal, and resourceful old students of an institution or a profession, class, group, or department. Alumni is a major stakeholder of any establishment. The vision and mission of sustainable development is generally embraced by all the founders of institutions at all levels, be it secular or religious institution. All founders of institutions work assiduously to develop and sustain the institution in perpetuity. Alumni, therefore, is the sure stakeholder of their institution if well harnessed. Alumni is a constant stakeholder because while employees retire and may forget or even not feel committed to the institution anymore, the alumni will remain with their unchangeable identity as products of their institution. It is therefore important to make students in our institution, make them see themselves as part of the stakeholders, resource persons, and developmental instruments of their institution. For example, alumni of Harvard and Oxford University are behind the success and the prestigious positions the two universities occupy in the globe. Therefore, the role of alumni in developing their institution, department, institute, faculty, or university is endless. Alumni can help to procure facilities through donations or organized fundraising. Alumni is a sound instrument of crisis management. They can serve as peacemaker and agent of reconciliation. They can assist the institution with local and international collaborations, linkages, thereby expanding the frontier of support to their alma mater. They can influence curriculum review to reflect the need of the society and the industry. Alumni can contribute to investment programs of their school and uplift their institution's endowment. They can organize fundraising programs for capital projects in the university. Alumni can use her platform to demand from government a better deal for the welfare of the staff of their institutions. They can also use their professional connections to attract investors, donors, sponsors to fund some projects, training program, and exchange programs in their institution. Alumni in diaspora can link their alma mater with foundations, grants, governmental and non-governmental organizations to give aids and training to their institution and students. Alumni can influence positively the student union government. I'm happy the president is there. to contribute to the development of the university. Alumni can provide scholarship and endow awards for the benefits of brilliant and indigent students. At old age, some alumni can donate properties and fund to their alma mater. We've had some elders of our alumni saying, I'm getting old. I have some money. I don't know where to put this money, but I don't want to put the money where it will go down the drain. If an alumni association is solid and sincere, such money can come into the university. In conclusion, every institution has the responsibility to engage her numerous alumni for developmental purpose. There should be solid involvement and interactions between the institution and her alumni. Institutions should, in all ways, emphasize the importance of alumni to her students while in school, so that her product will not forget their source. An institution without the support of its alumni may remain stagnant and find it difficult to develop or sustain herself in perpetuity. In some universities, they have symbols of their universities. I know some universities have rings that are symbols of that particular university. And they make their alumni, as they graduate, they buy their rings and they wear the rings all around. Even if you want to forget, some people watching your fingers will say, oh, are you a graduate of this place? It gives continuous memory of your source, your alma mater. The future is bright for universities, if only we can effectively engage our treasures out there, that is the alumni, who are the strong, reliable, and dependable stakeholders in the affairs of our units, departments, institutes, faculties, colleges, and universities. Let there be comprehensive data of our alumni. We must contact them. We must communicate constantly with them. We must have a forum through which we communicate so we can get in touch with them in time of need and in time of plenty. Thank you for listening.
So, well, thank you very much, ma'am. I will leave the participants to decide on why this is the only person that has kept to time so far. So the reason, I mean, might be obvious, but I mean, yeah, so she had talked about the fact that alumni, the alumni of the university could contribute in many ways to uplifting the university, and that we should start from who is an alumni, whether it's a matriculant, someone who matriculated or someone who graduated. But anyone who matriculated and is in good standing with the university should be considered alumni as far as it goes in Ibadan, for instance. And she highlighted the role of alumni in different ways: collaboration, linkages, curriculum, and helping the curriculum to meet the needs of society and to resolve disputes and all of that. So she ended by insisting that we should have a database of our alumni so that we can, all universities should have a database of their alumni so that they can deploy the strength of the alumni in all that they do. Thank you very much again, ma'am, for that wonderful talk. A round of applause, please. Thank you. So now it's time to talk about university business, recycling university. And we have a very experienced administrator here representing the registrar of the university, but nonetheless, he has the pedigree of administration. He's been here for donkey years. He's currently the DR Human Resource and Development, non-academic, University of Ibadan, an astute administrator. And when we speak about the custodians of university culture, we talk a lot about the culture of our universities, and it's actually the administrators that maintain that culture. And we have someone here who has that experience and symbolizes that, Mr. Ibokun Akin Bola. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. First and foremost, let me congratulate the Committee of Vice-Chancellor, as well as our Vice-Chancellor of this university, Professor Kayode Oyebode Adebowale, on this 68th anniversary of Committee of Vice-Chancellor on behalf of the Registrar of this university, Mrs. Olubunmi Falui, who is unable to attend this occasion due to an official engagement outside the university. And he asked me to represent her to join the soapbox discussion on business of recycling. When we talk about business of recycling, I think it is necessary to look at it from two sides. From the side of environmentalists, it has to do with the processing of used or abandoned materials in creating new products. The idea here is to prevent the waste of potential useful material. And it's also to protect the environment from destruction or pollution. And I believe that is also important in our university. The other side is that of Human Resource and Development Division of the university, which is saddled with the responsibility of moving staff from one job to another in a systematic manner, most especially non-teaching staff. This is to ensure that the university always have the right people in the right places to do the job required by the university. And the point here is this: the business of recycling, from the point of environmentalists, as mentioned earlier, is the act of processing used or abandoned materials. Whereas the type of business of recycling in the university system is not to use or discard members of staff, but it is to develop skills, knowledge, behavior necessary for better performance. And it is also to make workers better informed and be able to be more successful in the discharge of their duties. But fundamentally, this systematic movement of staff has become the tradition of the university because of the following reason. Number one, members of staff who perform the same task over and over for several years become bored, tired, and dissatisfied with the job. Some of them, they complain that they've stayed long in a department, and as a result, we have to move them in order to enable them to gain a sense of growth and development. Secondly, some head of departments always find it difficult to control some of these staff who have stayed for long in a department, most especially if the staff are where the time the head of departments was appointed in a department, The time the head of department became a professor, that head of department always found it difficult to control such a staff. And in that case, that staff needs to be moved in order to maintain discipline and decorum. And not only that, is to allow the staff to learn the work environment of another department in the system. We also have some staff who also lack understanding of operation of the entire university system. They derive their pleasure only in union matters. They are myopic. They are only interested in regular payment of salary and rapid promotion. They are not interested about the vision and mission of the university. And we need to move such a staff in order to allow him to know to another department, to let him know that university is a serious business. It is also necessary to mention here that the business recycling did not only address the point I have just mentioned, but also brought some advantages to members of staff as well as the university. Firstly, the career paths of staff are developed because they are not being restricted or stagnated in a place. Secondly, it serves as a message to members of staff to know that the university value them and that they also have opportunity to grow. It also helps the university to identify members of staff who are responsible, reliable, committed, and dedicated to their duties, and who are also need to be motivated. So the business of recycling is a strategy to develop staff, to motivate staff, and to empower staff. It's not that it is being used like environmentalists to use staff and discard them. No, it is used to develop skill, knowledge, and behavior necessary for performance in the job. In the final analysis, one can conclude that business cycling in the university system is a strategy that must be encouraged and improved upon. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for following the good example of the lady professor who was before you by ensuring that you kept your time. Thank you very much, sir, very much. He had said that, well, staff in the university are recycled largely to for ergonomic reasons in terms of efficient deployment of staff based on the talents that they have, but that recycling also is a systematic movement of staff so that they can skill up, they can learn certain skills and be more abreast with the running of the university in general. And that's healthy in terms of ensuring that people do not stay too long in a particular place and get too comfortable there and just know that. So it develops their career path, it stays, gives them a sterling path. And that it's important that by doing so, the university runs more efficiently. Thank you very much, sir. Now is the time for those who actually to contribute, and that's the student bodies. And we have here the president of Student Union, University of Ibadan. And in University of Ibadan, to be president of the student union, you must have a CGPA or its equivalent, which is 2.1. If you want to be an executive of the university students union, you must have a CGPA that is 2.1 or its equivalent, and above. And that's a basic standard, and you must have untainted record. This gentleman is a member of the premier club on campus, the Sigma Club. They believe that everything must be pure. They believe in only things that are pure. He's a level-headed gentleman who listens to counsel, but makes demands nonetheless and knows how to go about the business of negotiation. I would like to welcome our very own Mr. President, Adeyinka Adewale. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like to appreciate the Office of the Deputy Vice Chancellor, ACAD, for deeming it fit to invite the student union, over 40,000 students of University of Ibadan, who is the youngest among all, here present today. Protocols in orders, the Vice Chancellor of the Premier University, the University of Ibadan, down to the university principal officers here present here today, the chairman, CVCNU, down to the other administrative office holder in that union, other distinguished personality here today, ladies and gentlemen. Well, when the topic was given to me, I actually don't know what to say, because I was like, data as a resource for university. When our emeritus professor was speaking the other time, he has not, in fact, he keep emphasizing on data, and everything. And then I realized that the topic here is just to sum up what the others have said and make our own as a student to know. First thing, whether we like it or not, there are 4 basic things that we have to consider. And the first one, the data we are considering should be beneficial to university growth. Secondly, this word called data, it is economical, it is cheap, and it is everywhere. It is not data for MTN or Glow subscription. It is what output of university and the input we are getting that we refer to as data. Thirdly, the data we're talking about is sustainable. And that is why when the Secretary General was here the other time and he was saying, when he assumed the office at 2019, the first thing he asked for was the minute of the first meeting. And that thing in that context, it is data in that context. And the data here today has made the union to grow. Also, the data we are talking about, it is feasible. And that is why it is an important thing that we have to consider in university growth. If you work in human services because you hate mathematics, terms like data, qualitative analysis, or pivot table might sound scary, but don't be intimidated. The speech is not about those words, and data do not have to be complicated. For simplicity, data is a useful information that are collected to support organizational decision-making and strategy. Today, University of Ibadan is ranked first in Nigeria. Not only being ranked first in Nigeria, but there are so many things that University of Ibadan is known for. For example, toxicology department in University of Ibadan is ranked first in Nigeria, second in Africa, and 106 in the world. Because of what? It's because there are adequate data being computed and being kept for the growth of the university. Likewise, the Department of Nutrition in University of Ibadan is ranked first in Nigeria, second in Africa, and 129 in the world. Also, biotechnology discipline here in Nigeria, University of Ibadan is ranked first, 7th in Africa, and 209 in the world. Virology also, first in Nigeria, 8th in Africa, and 413 in the world. That is why we consider data as one of the integral parts of university growth. Also, some university decision-making is not based on fact, rather on assumption, because they have no data for such. Institutional politics associated with data are brutal because many institutions try to level up with others, thereby making use of wrong data to build their decision making. And that is why in considering data as one of the integral parts of university development, we have to know that developing a complete data inventory is important and it is anonymous task. But what
of the effort. The university can at least develop, keep current, and publish an inventory of most critical data and the source of data. For example, currently now in University of Ibadan, most of the undergraduate researchers are not being considered because we feel like we are still young and we don't know how to go about it. But today, because of data we keep by ourselves, I can say in Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, we have 9 solid undergraduate students who are into research work, 40 students in College of Medicine, and 80 students in Faculty of Pharmacy undergraduate who are currently in research work. These are the basic data that make university to grow. And in considering this, there are 7 basic ways in which these data can actually help university growth. 1, it helps in target scholarship for students. 2, to identify students who need more attention. 3, to reassess curriculum and regular update. 4, to create customized program for individual students. 5, to save on operations. 6, improve student performance. And 7, to better assessment of staffs. Why is data important? 1, data helps to improve lives, both academics and non-academic staffs living on campus. 2, it helps in making informed decisions. 3, it helps to get a desired result. 4, data helps to find solutions to problems. Last year, December, when the Vice-Chancellor of this university called for a town hall meeting among student union leaders, I was so surprised when he was mentioning issue concerning electricity back then in University of Ibadan. He was able to track the record for over 20 years that we're having electricity issues on campus till the moment, and he was able to make a solid solution that this is the right way that the university will take it. Without data, I don't think we could have made such decisions. And on that day, he was able to back up his argument because he had a solid data. That is why data in university, as a resource in university, help us to back up our argument. If you have a qualified data, you won't have to guess in the game of resource in university. Also, data also helps to be strategic in any approach. Data helps you to know how well the university is going, and data helps to help us track the record of all that has been happening in the university. When our professor was talking about the funding in university, what we also need is data is also an integral part to track funding in university. The question here today is that what are the type of data that we keep in our various university? And by the time we're able to answer that question, we'll be able to know that most of the data we keep across our university are data that we don't need. When we're able to identify that these are the basic data we need, then we'll be able to come to a point that data is an integral part of university development. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for that talk. So he's highlighted the importance of data in administration, in strategizing, and says that it helps for informed decision-making, saying that when decisions are taken off the data, then we're prone to do wrong. He highlighted the use of data in dealing with resolving student issues. I mean, he didn't quite emphasize what happened, but students were agitated about certain things, and there was a meeting with management, and by the time data was presented to them, people mellowed and they became advocates of the very course that administration was pushing, so that we can achieve desired results when we present data properly, and that we can also use it for evaluation, which is very important. Thank you very much, Mr. Adeyinka Adewale. And now the floor is open to, we're done with the panel presentations, and the floor is open to questions and comments. And it'll be nice to be brisk about it, like we said at the beginning. So when you do ask a question, just please offer an introduction of yourself, a brief one, and then ask the question. And let's also make that brief. Let's also please direct the questions to specific members of the panel so that the person will be obliged. We'll take like 4 or 5 questions first, and then after that, take another set. Thank you very much. Yes.
Well, I don't want to lean on any protocol. So many people have leaned on it, otherwise get broken. Well, I just have some observations. I want to find out from the local organizers whether this program is streamed live or not. Wonderful. Well, the first observation I want to make is that when the chairman of the Committee of Vice-Chancellors of Private Universities read his goodwill message on behalf of the chairman, and I think I observed that he was able to kill within 60 seconds. So, and that is something I want to know, that the future of Nigerian university actually belongs to the private university. By their numerical strength and by their performance. My name is Professor Amidu Sani, Vice-Chancellor of Fountain University. The second point I want to make is that if the number of Vice-Chancellors, according to record, is 753, and you have 35 women or so, I think the CVC-NU needs to do better. And I think if we have this large number of Vice-Chancellors as women, and I think UI has been doing wonderfully well. 2 Vice-Chancellors, 2 GVC women, the registrar, a woman, the librarian, a woman, and I think UI is first and still the best. I'm proud to say that. And you would need to lead the current campaign to the National Assembly, and you could give a lead along that direction that, okay, fine, let women now take the lead. So it's very important that the CVC should actually bolster the effort at improving women participation in leadership role. The second point I want to make in 3 areas. 1, the ASU issue, TED fund issue, and of course, how to assist the students. ASU has become so militarized, so unionized that it needs to be reformed, and the transformation should start from Professor Bameru says something. Over-centralization of unionism has not led the university system to develop at all. So the CVC should be the lead to find a way of making the university system work better, with ASU to be the think tank, not union leaders. And it's unfortunate that if you happen to see many of ASU leaders in the past few years, you happen to see the CV of many of them, many could not publish over the past 10 years or more. They spend more time in union activities than in academic activities. The second one is, how do you now help funding? My time is out, but CVC-NU, and of course the local LOC, please, if this is the Southwest branch of the anniversary, I think probably we'll have had somebody from Unilag and IFED and Ibadan, not just a UIF here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's not directed to someone.
Thank you. My name is Olorun Fela. I'm from UI, on loan to Dominion University as Vice Chancellor. I would like to touch on a few of the points made. I would like to first thank all the participants, but I'll quickly talk about the issue of learning management system, IGR security, and plagiarism. On the issue of learning management system, I think what we should do is to have take-ups from this gathering. And from the experience of UI in 2021, the key issue there is about funding of the entire process. Because the assumption is that the students have the facilities to key into this system. We found out that many students don't even have the Android phones. They don't have the tablets or many of these things that are required to drive this thing. Then the issue of data can be very expensive to run this system. So I think it's important to address the issue of virtual learning. And when ASU president was here, I think last year or late 2020, I raised that issue at an ASU Congress that as a matter of deliberate policy, that fund should now begin to fund virtual learning facilities in Nigerian universities. It should not just be about brick and mortars. We are now in the new normal. And there was virtually no public university that was able to actually run a seamless virtual learning system when we had the COVID-19. So there's a need to begin to change. There's a need for policy in that directive. I know that you have to supply data to staff and students, but we see our challenges of electricity, data, and so on. In the issue of IGR, all I want to say is that 15, 18 years ago, through the support of Carnegie Foundation and MacArthur, advancement centers were set up in quite a number of universities. But today, we are not hearing much about them again for donations, because fees alone cannot sustain any university. Donations, endowments, and so on. Where are our advancement centers today? What have they achieved? Can we do an assessment so that we can encourage donations? Security. All I want to say there is it's important to now begin to employ seasoned, intelligent, educated people, because we are now dealing with more sophisticated kinds of crimes, cyber crimes, and so on. So people who will catch them must be smarter than them. So it's also important for security units to look at the recruitment, what kinds of people we are now recruiting into our security units. On plagiarism, all I want to say is most times the focus is on staff and not on students. But you are as hard to, in one case, withdraw a PhD certificate, in another case, did not even allow the exam to hold because of plagiarism. But I'm not, and that's at PhD level. At undergraduate level, let's begin to let them know that plagiarism is not acceptable. In many universities abroad, it's already a given. If you are caught plagiarizing, you are dismissed from the university. So let's not stop at the lecturer level or PhD level, because the undergraduates of today are the lecturers of tomorrow. So at that level, let them know that plagiarism is not acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I extend my salutations to those on the high table. My name is Chinedum Peace Babalola, the Vice-Chancellor of Priestland University. I've enjoyed all the topics, and I want to start, because I love the youths, to commend the President Adeyinka highly. You spoke beyond expectation, exceptionally well, with good knowledge of the topic. I commend and congratulate you. For plagiarism, we can't overflog it. First of all, what is the right punishment for plagiarism? And how do we set that up in different institutions? What is really the right punishment for it? Or is it graded? And not, because I do know, as my other colleagues spoke, if it's abroad, you are dismissed. As a dean, I received a request to admit a student from US. And when I inquired, she plagiarized just in an assignment. That's just the reason. Again, is it possible to put it in our admission letters to students and appointment letters to staff? It's possible we can do that. Again, as a dean, I received a very painful letter from a group of researchers in Cameroon, that's dean here in UI Pharmacy, how a PG student in our faculty had plagiarized their work, and they were talking with so much agony and pain. And I did all the routes reported. I didn't get any response. I submitted to PG school, you know, I did all I was supposed to do. And they kept writing. I didn't get any response.
I think the best we did was to stop the students, and he copied them and put his supervisor's names. So I think we need to take it more seriously. In UI, the PG students now have the turn it in. Well, what I've realized as a supervisor is that it is changing the meaning of their thesis. I don't know how we can handle that. The two PhD students that defended, they couldn't grapple with the meaning and turning around their thesis. I'll stop there. Security. I just want to say that what's the punishment for drug use, drug abuse in UI? Is there anything like that? In many private universities, I think we do have policies on that. I don't know much about here, but one experience we have gained is partnering with NDLEA, and we are amazed at how professional, proficient NDLEA people are with discovering drug users and drug peddlers. Thank you very much.
Hello. Existing protocol followed. I was especially interested in Professor Bamiru, right? His assertion that we needed quality lecturers and students. When you were a VC, at least those before you and you had control of the university. Some VCs will even travel abroad to look for very quality lecturers. Government has hijacked all this process. What it means, most people that are not interested in teaching, because they don't have any other job, they now come to the university. Once they get to the university, what happens is that they know they are not good. They start shopping from one university, stay 2 years, go to another one, become senior lecturer, and that one, before you know it, in 5 years, he's a professor, professing nothing. I believe that if we insist that when you are coming from another university, whatever level you acquired in that university, start here and prove it to us that you can do better. And you see, you stop all this jumping. The students, the reason why our students are not doing very well is because there's no value to that education. People just come to university because they want to have a degree, not because they want to learn. In those days, I used to, when I was a student in high school, I used to look for, I want to go to University of Ibadan because of a particular professor. University of Lagos, because of a particular professor. Those ones were the ones gingering us to want to become somebody. But these days, nobody cares about a professor. So we must go back to the original and make sure that the universities become what they are supposed to be. Thank you. Oh, sorry. I'm Professor Chris Odetunde, Vice-Chancellor of Augustine University, Lara Ekpe. Thank you.
So I think that we will just take those questions and then we'll move around like that. Thank you. Yeah, reactions to whatever.
I think it was Solo Nishola that touched probably tangentially on the learning management system. At the University of Ibadan, we didn't start with a full-fledged learning management system. We started with what is referred to as emergency remote teaching. Because, after the COVID, it was very clear that there couldn't be, the normal face-to-face teaching. So at that time, it's not as if we are thoroughly prepared. So what we could start with is this emergency remote teaching. And if you look at details of the emergency remote teaching, it's supposed to be very temporary. And there are a lot of challenges that goes along with it. But I can tell you that the experiences that we have garnered with the emergency remote teaching has helped us because we are on full learning management system. The technical committee, the emergency remote teaching, has transformed to the technical on learning. Basically, you spoke about it first about data. And faced with the telcos. And the three telcos, they are Glo, MTN, and Airtel. And that is what the generality of most sub. Well, we have much problem with Airtel. The major problem that we had, is with MTN, because we are still having challenges with them. A number of times, there are a number of facilities that we ask them to, avail us. Up till now, we are still talking to them, and unfortunately for us, more than approximately 60% of staff and students, are on MTN network. So there is nothing that we could do, or rather to speak with them. We allocated a number of data, to students based on their matric number and sent it to their phones and so on, and also to staff for all this. The support may not be completely, effective or efficient, but I know that sizable number with our monitoring and evaluation, we found out that at least greater than 70%, received, those data. The second challenge is in terms of internet service. The university has a program, has a project on IT infrastructure. And what we did at the time of our planning, and it's supposed to be sourced within internally. At the time that we started, the total cost is expected to be about 850 million. By the time it was about 1 year after, it's in excess of 1.2 billion. So we had challenges with it, but because we are facing it out, the first phase is supposed to address areas, academic areas, as well as student hosted. And I know that we are pursuing that. We are almost completed that phase one, which we know is the most important. By the time we have that, even with the phase one, it's also going to glean on some residential quarters and so on, because there are some of those students hostels that are very close to residential areas. They will be able to pick the network. The IT infrastructure is still continuing. We have jumped now to phase 4, and we are going successfully. And fortunately for us, there is one of the interventions that is helping with that. So we are still pursuing that so that we will have internet services throughout the university as well as Ajibode Extension.
Thank you, sir. I think there is something on plagiarism, sir, for you.
We also spoke about, we didn't have record. Probably the president of the student union will be able to help us. He spoke about data. We didn't have data on the number of students, that are having Android phones and so on. I'm sure there will be a sizable number. But you see many of them with phones, they press it all the time while they are working. So I am giving you the charge now. Help us find out if you need some very little incentive. I won't call it financial incentive. We will be able to, the university will be able to, because we know we don't have
The university will be able to support you. You want to know, at least the number of students that are on campus right now. You want to know the number of them or the percentage, that have Android phones that can go on LMS. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice.
Thank you very much. I think it was Professor Babalola and Professor Lorenzola that commented on plagiarism. Specifically, Professor Babalola asked the question, what's the right punishment for plagiarism? Let me just state it clearly. Each university, they have their policies. Even though what we are asking for is open publication of these policies. For example, the University of Ibadan, in the information handbook of the University of Ibadan, it is clearly written. If somebody is found guilty of plagiarism, it is dismissal. It is written there. But the question is the willpower to enforce such when situations happen. We are supposed to be gatekeepers. But whether we keep that gate very well is another thing. For students, you have said it that even outside this, if you do an assignment and you plagiarize, you lose mark for that, or you are disciplined for that. So all we need to do is to put flesh on what we already put inside the books and make it to happen. That's about that, man.
That people that will do security work should be educated and to deal with the new ways of campaigning for that. As a matter, the Conference of Heads of Security in Nations in Nigeria is of the opinion that it's high time we had a specialized force, special for campus security service. Things are getting difficult every day. Today, we now have a cases of kidnapping in the university. Those were not there before. All the forces you see in Nigeria today started from the Nigerian police force, be it the army, the navy, the immigration. They all started. At one time or the other, those ones were carved out of the police because of their area of specialization. So we are saying that we should now be thinking of carving out another force that will be in charge of campus security. They will be trained in the use of arms. Many of them will be graduates so that they will be able to relate with the students, unlike what we have on ground now. The earlier we are able to do that, the better for the system. It's about punishment for drug abuse in UI. Am I right? The book in UI explains in detail punishment for drug use or the use of unwholesome substances. We don't expel. We suspend, ranging from 1 semester, sometimes to 4. But throughout the period of suspension, we expect that student to have attended rehabilitation center, be it NDS or another center, where he will collect a certificate of cleanliness before coming back to resume studies. But in the process of investigation at the security office, it is important for us to know his source of supply. If it does not disclose the source of supply, then it's not being remorseful. The reason is simple. By the time you know the source of supply and you do a follow-up operation, you have saved so many students out of this problem. And madam, if your students are abusing drugs, look around the school. The source may not be too far. Thank you.
Yeah. That to make the staff quality. I mean, it is a big problem in the system. And why it's a big problem is very easy. We said that we have got now 205 universities. Where is the academic Peter? You know, so you find a situation whereby, I mean, we have been having cases of staff claiming to be full-time staff in different universities. At least when I was Vice-Chancellor, there was a staff of University of Ibadan that we discovered there was also a full-time staff at Ekiti State University. Then how about moonlighting? I mean, people just move around. Really have. And that's what you are saying. I mean, to us. Honestly, fairness. So I believe that is something that every university will have to look into this. It's not something you can get, I mean, you can legislate or something like that. It depends on the individual university, what quality you are looking for. But I think what is also important about staff is that there is need for serious staff development. I mean, let's face it, even the teaching we are talking about, if you are still teaching in the old way, I mean, you're out of things. Okay, people are now taking a virtual and so on. I remember as Vice when I board, and I started with education, and I said they should master it so that they will teach others. I remember, I mean, Senate of University, I mean, where somebody came to me and said, what is this, your smart board? Who is telling you that the blackboard is not smart? But I know the comfort zone. I mean, not many people are really comfortable with IT, but we just must take the trouble, I mean, to get as many, Then lastly, on data, as he has mentioned, one can never overemphasize on the importance of data. I mean, data has helped us in this university to solve a number of. I remember when students, said they were not going to pay 10,000 for accommodation, bed space. When President Obasanjo just said, they should pay 10,000, all the universities should hands off management of hall. And it was causing problem all over. Professor Palache was the Vice-Chancellor then. I just came in as Deputy Vice-Chancellor Administration. Suffice it to say that we asked ourselves the fundamental question. The federal government has said, okay, students should pay 10,000. On what basis? On what basis? So we didn't find any basis other than, instead of the 9, I think they were paying 900 or whatever before, okay, pay 9,000. Okay. So we now ask ourselves, okay, let us do cost structure. How much really were we spending at University of Ibadan on maintaining students in accommodation? I was the chairman of the committee, then the bossa and so on. By the time we sat down and did the analysis, we find that University of Ibadan, with the 12 halls of residents, we are accommodating almost 9,000 plus students, and the university was spending about 320 million to support them in accommodation. How much were we getting from students? 28 million. So which means that we were subsidizing, but we did not know. So it was then we were confident. We said, okay, this report, let's send it to the student union government for them to see that even the 10,000 we're talking about, we are not going to recover more than probably 20 or 30% of the cost. But the power of data was that the students were then ready to be reasonable when they saw the analysis. And I remember, just to cut it short, when we took the matter to Senate to at least pronounce on it. Before getting to Senate, some people have already said, no, the students should continue to pay 4,000 that they are paying and this and that. Education is public good, this and that and that. But when Professor Falashe got to Senate and I was asked to present and I presented, we happen to know the hawks in Senate, those who will speak and, throw the... One particular person was putting a hand up. I won't give a name. These were people that Professor Falashe were by side. I said, don't call her. This woman will spoil business. So Falashe was looking another direction. And then she was saying, no, Mr. Vice-Chancellor. Oh, okay. We said, all right, call her. So she stood up. She now said, Professor Falashe should give her the special chance. Senate should give her a chance to stand up to address Senate. Because in the Senate or University of Ibadan, you must be seated when addressing Senate. You are not allowed to stand up. She begged for special distance to stand up to address Senate. We say, Wahala be. This must be Wahala for somebody. Anyway, she got what she wanted. And then she now survives to say that. She said, wow, she has been in Senate for more than 20 years. That she has never seen an issue that has been so analyzed and the data are quite clear. Now, what are we talking about? We are not here to be supporting students in accommodation. Let them pay the 30,000 naira for this. My son said, well, thank God I went to church before then. Before that meeting, and I paid my tithe. And I said, wow, this is great. And honestly, she made our... But the power of data, okay. Senate agreed, recovered the cost. So it was now Professor Falashe, out of magnanimity, said, we don't want to jump from 4,000 to 30,000. Since government has suggested 10,000, let us go in steps. So we asked them to pay 10,000. Of course, the power of technology, when they now said 10,000, apparently some people now, some students were around the nicer car park, waiting for the outcome of that meeting of Senate. When they heard that, that management said, okay, pay your 10,000. We started hearing, we don't win, no, we don't win. And they paid the 10,000 without any problem. That is the power of data. Whereas before, when we were just saying, you must pay, no bid. So let us have basic. I'm also confident that in terms of student, people paying fees, let every university be able to determine, as I think somebody mentioned it here, determine what is the cost of each program. Why should somebody doing history be paying the same amount as somebody doing medicine and so on? The cost of each program. I saw that power at the Vice-Chancellors University, which is a private university where I'm a pro-chancellor. The bursar there, fantastic guy. Every program, he was able to do the analysis and he gave us the unit cost of that program. And what fees were we asking students to pay? It was cost plus. Just cost plus a little bit. And that's why that university, so we can, the public universities, we are not, if government says students should not pay tuition, no problem. You are giving them scholarship, paid so much. That is the basis of what we are saying. So I think for managing any institution, we have to really make sure that we pay due attention, to really, data management. It cannot be otherwise.
Thank you very much, Emeritus Professor Bamiru there. So we're going to take another round of questions and perhaps stop at that.
Thank you, sir. I would like to stand on the existing protocol. My name is Professor C.O. Adekoya, Deputy Vice-Chancellor Administration, Olabisi Onabanjo University, Agbowoye, representing the Vice-Chancellor, Professor G.O. Olatunde. So I want to ask, when Professor Bamiru was giving his discussion on issues concerning the skills gap. I want to say, sir, that this issue of skills gap in Nigeria university is an issue that is much talked about. I know that for every university, whether private or public, there must be a minimum standard in terms of training. Not only in terms of curriculum, because the NUC has taken care of the curriculum to say, okay, this is the curriculum for each program. But beyond the curriculum, we know that for a balanced diet of training must entail the knowledge, the skills, and the value. In all sincerity, what do we see in terms of our products? Do we see the value in terms of the ethical aspect of our students that we produce? What I see as the predominant is the knowledge. And that is what Professor Bamiro is talking about. And when you begin to look at this issue, it seems to me that we are paying lip service to this problem of skills gap in Nigerian universities. Because there should be an international, standard when you are producing students, irrespective of the country that you produce the students. And I believe that what are the real problems that we are not producing graduates that acquire both the knowledge, the skills, and the value, which is the ethical aspect, as you might want to call it. So these are serious problems that I think that I want to know what the Nigerian universities are doing. Because I know that Professor Bamiro was former Vice-Chancellor, but maybe the VC of UI can, assist us, or the chairman of the Committee of Vice-Chancellors to address this issue, what the Committee of Vice-Chancellors is actually doing to address the critical issue in Nigerian universities. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Still leaning on the existing protocol, I'm Professor Adebite, representing the VC, Olusegun Agagu University of Science and Technology, Okitipupa, Professor Timi Ologun Orisha. My comment or question will be to Professor Aremu on campus security. In his presentation, he mentioned tallying system and checking pedestrians as some of the measures to ensure security. But my concern is on cybercrime and ritualism among the students nowadays. In almost every campus of this university, many of our students are more interested in running after money than knowledge. And this is running down their performance in academics. Also not making it difficult to attain the minimum 70% pass in a class, whereby teachers will be asked to be awarding bonus marks or jacking up marks. The rush for money among students now is making them to acquire unusual wealth, including vehicles, making it very competitive between students and teachers at the car parks to scan for space. So my question is, how do we check these SSCs of the students? Many of them drive recklessly on campus. How do we check these SSCs of the students who are now money bags and riding cars that their lecturers cannot afford?
I am standing on the existing. Victor Korua is the name, Director of Academic Planning. Just 3 comments I want to make. Yeah, quickly, just quick ones. The first has to do with the issue of this, what do you call it now? The virtual learning. I think it would be nice, except for universities that have been doing it for 3-4 years now. It would be nice to do an analysis of the results of students who were engaged in virtual learning and find it with against those who did not do what virtually. I'm saying this because with the University of Ibadan, the experience we had, our students did poorly in exams, in this present exam that we do. It's still a problem. So for some, they might do well, but you see, you don't just base your analysis on one hub. It has to be what? The generality. That's one aspect. Then the next has to do with data. Now, data goes beyond the issue with respect to staffing and the rest. Now, let's come to students. You find a lot of universities and graduate students. The question is, do they have the facilities? And there comes in data. Before you take in students, you have to know the capacity of hall, your lecture room, and the rest. And that is on that basis you do this analysis. And it's important. But some people take students because of the money they will get. And that is what they are launching on. And that should not be. Thank you very much.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please, may I request your indulgence, may I crave your indulgence to request that we wait until the end of the program because we want to take group photographs for posterity.
And we'll be done in 5 minutes. We'll be done in 5 minutes. Please, just one question and in 30 seconds.
Oh, thank you very much. My own comment is to our other emeritus Professor Bamiru. Concerning the use of ASU on campus that are becoming militarized, and the fact that the system will be destabilized eventually. So I have the formula comment, which I will also want our emeritus professor to consider. The first one is about when we go down the memory lane, what actually caused the federal government to stop the institutions in the university. And then we believe, I think Professor Bukola reminded us that between 1975 and 1979, federal government stopped the payment of fees in the university. And then also, one can also infer that the government of the day probably had access to a lot of funds. Those were the era when people were saying that money is not Nigerian problem, but how to spend it. So what are the things that made them to stop? And then you also look at the issue of the problem that were created in the university system. For example, no university, no federal university can fix salary of professors or anyone without the approval of the federal government salary and wages commission. And we also have the issue of a problem that were created by test fund. We have so many kind of problems that cannot be tackled at the local level rather than at the central union level. And we also know that over the years, even the test fund that we are all proud of, that is helping the university, was a brainchild of ASU. One began to think, why did the federal government not allocate those money? You know, that is the 1% that is coming from the companies after tax that form the basis of the test fund funding. Why was the money not allocated to the university directly so that they can put on? So this is my own thinking concerning why the justification for a central union at the university level to actually do justice to it. The second one is about Professor Gunkola talking about cost benefit analysis. You know, I remember that some years ago when I was a member of council actually did that. And then under that, we were able to find out that in the College of Medicine, to produce a medical doctor in a year, you need about 1 to 2 million or something that time. And that one breaks down the faculty. But when the administration at that time got to Abuja, they just set it aside. So the problem now is that how do we get government of the day to look at the reality and do what is needful so that we have peace in the university? Thank you very much, sir.
So she's promised to be snappy about it. So she's going to have 30 seconds.
Thank you very much. I'm representing my Vice-Chancellor, Professor Fatusi of the University of Medical Sciences. Ondo, and Professor Mumba, the Deputy Vice-Chancellor Academic. The issue of fees in the university is a very serious problem. In line that the government, both federal and state, are not adequately funding the university. We had a problem in our university at the end of the year, last year, when we found out that it's impossible to run a specialized university, which is the University of Medical Sciences, which train mostly medical students, with the meager fee they were paying, about 180,000. And the university was almost grounding up. So we did an assessment. What does it cost to train a medical student? I mean, at this era, then you said it's 1 point something. Now it's about 6 million to train one medical student per annum. And the government was giving us little or nothing to do that. Because you don't want to train graduates, especially at the medical line, that will come out and start killing people. They have to be trained, they have to be equipped, they have to be well trained with facilities for them to graduate. So I'm thinking that this issue about doing a cost analysis for each program is very important. We had to take the bull on the head. We said we must increase COVID. It caused a lot of riots. NAS came to abuse the Vice-Chancellor. But fortunately, the governor stood by our side because he knew he was not giving much for the university. And the university started up, the student had to pay about 2.5 million if you're in medicine, and we categorized it. And I think the Committee of Vice-Chancellors have to put it into the federal government for federal universities. If they cannot subsidize, they should allow the university to charge fees. Then another thing about plagiarism, just one thing. The issue is that we don't teach our undergraduates anything about plagiarism. Nothing, absolutely nothing. They do assignments, they lift, copy and paste. Their project is mostly copy and paste. We should start from the undergraduates. Because I remember, just example, my daughter, when she went to do her master's outside the country, she said she had never heard anything about plagiarism. The first day they entered the university, they told them, you cannot quote any article that is not your words without citing. That was the first time she had it. And I think we should bring it to the undergraduate level. Thank you very much.
Yes. So that will be all in terms of questions, but the Secretary General wants to make a comment.
Just to say that on the issue of plagiarism, it's something that the Committee of Vice-Chancellors, like you said in your presentation, have been working on. And we realized that Turnitin, good as it was not helping in the Nigerian setting because Nigerian students were not cheating from global databases or from local databases that did not exist in it as a database. So a student from UI will go to IFE, student from IFE will go to Akumba and like that to copy. And so the CDC got the directors of ICT of 6 Nigerian universities to develop a homegrown solution to address plagiarism. It started in 2016, and I can proudly announce that we now have a plagiarism detection software that was developed by the Nigerian directors of ICT called Turnitin. And we are appealing to all our members to introduce Turnitin to your undergraduate students. In addition to plagiarism detection, we are also working on language conversion for local projects. So that if you write a project in Yoruba, and if a project in Yoruba has been written and you convert it into English and claim it as your own, thinking that nobody will catch you, EagleScan will detect it. And then we also have a thesis originality check in the sense that you want to write your undergraduate thesis on a history of Ibadan. You can go to that software and check how many people have written on University of a history of Ibadan. And then that one will help you with your originality index. So please, that information is out. And on this invitation, you can see the website of EagleScan that you can go and check it and do it yourself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I think that all those were comments largely, and so I'm not sure that there's a response from the table. No, so that'll be the end of the soapbox today. Thank you very much, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, for attending and participating so intensely. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Luis. I have a special appreciation here from the LOC to the Vice-Chancellor, Dominion University, Professor Ewolorun Nishola. He donated copies of a book, Words and Marble, by Bishop TV Adelakun. Please, let's appreciate their effort. Thank you. May I now invite the chairman of the local organizing committee, Professor Aderunke Bayeroju, to give the vote of thanks. Thank you.
I think we have all had an excellent time. It hasn't been boring at all. I have been educated, and I'm sure most of us have been further educated by what our panelists have said today. And so I want to say a very big thank you to all our panelists. They have been excellent. They have been erudite, and we should actually give them a round of applause. Thank you very much. I want to say a big thank you to the principal officers of the University of Ibadan. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you to all vice-chancellors who are here and their representatives. Thank you very much for coming, because this forum is really for you. And if you didn't come for this event, it would have been totally embarrassing for us. So we say a very big thank you to you. Thank you very much. Also, a big thank you to our provosts, deans, directors from the University of Ibadan. They've all been here, and we say a very big thank you to you for attending. And finally, I want to say a big thank you to the CVCNU Secretariat. Right from the beginning, they supported. They've been excellent. I want to say a big thank you to you, led by Professor Yakubu Ochefu. Thank you very much. We're very grateful. And to my LOC members, you've done a wonderful job. It's been quite tasking. They call me the slave master. It's been quite tasking, but we thank God it's all come and it's going to end today. Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you to everybody for honoring our invitation. God bless you all.
Please, may I request that we rise for the national and university anthems.
From
It's working. Group photograph on the steps of this hall, please. Outside, participants, principal officers of the university, panelists, LOC members, please, let's move out for the group photograph. Thank you.